If she walks through those gates tonight, do not bring her back. Alpha King Everett Callahan said the words calmly, but every wolf in Silver Pine Palace felt the weight behind them. Clara Whitmore stopped with one hand on the handle of her suitcase. For a moment, the entire courtyard went silent. Then Ronan, the Alpha King's massive silver wolf, walked past the guards, grabbed the suitcase strap in his teeth, and quietly carried it back inside. Clara stared. You have got to be kidding me. Ronan placed the suitcase beside Everett's throne and sat down like he had just solved a royal crisis. The guards looked away, pretending not to smile. Even the beta looked tired in the way of someone who had watched this happen 3 times already. Everett's jaw tightened. Ronan. The wolf refused to move. Clara looked between them. Your wolf just ignored a direct order from the Alpha King. Everett looked at the animal who carried his instincts, his pride, and the parts of himself he rarely showed anyone. Apparently. Clara sighed and picked up the suitcase again. I appreciate the concern, but I am leaving. She had said that yesterday. She had said it the day before yesterday too. Every time, Ronan returned her suitcase before she reached the palace gates. Clara was beginning to suspect the wolf was less a royal companion and more a very large, very stubborn butler. She had come to Silver Pine Palace 6 months earlier as a simple Omega healer. She was supposed to treat injured royal animals and leave quietly when her work was finished. She never expected the Alpha King's wolf to choose her. She never expected the coldest ruler in the northern packs to look at her like he was trying to understand a language he had never learned. And she definitely never expected the entire palace to notice. You cannot keep doing this, Clara whispered to Ronan. The wolf tilted his head. She understood that look. It was the same expression he gave nobles who offered him expensive treats instead of listening to him. It meant, you are wrong, and I have already decided. Everett watched her carefully. Why are you so determined to leave? Clara looked at him. That question hurt more than she wanted to admit. Because he knew. He knew the council questioned her. He knew the noble families whispered that an Omega healer had no place beside an Alpha King. He knew every time she entered the throne room, she felt like she was borrowing someone else's air. But Everett had never said a word. Because I came here to heal your wolf, she said quietly. Not to become a problem your kingdom has to solve. For the first time, Everett's expression changed. Not much. Just enough. A slight pause. A small crack in the perfect control he wore like armor. Ronan stepped closer to Clara and lowered his head. The bond between wolf and healer had always been unusual. But tonight, something felt different. Warm. Certain. Like the wolf already knew something neither of them wanted to admit. Clara touched his fur gently. You are making this harder than it needs to be. Ronan looked at Everett. Everett looked away first. And that was the moment Clara realized something terrifying. The wolf was not the only one who did not want her to leave. The Alpha King simply had not learned how to say it yet. The next morning, Clara Whitmore discovered that leaving Silver Pine Palace was much harder when the entire royal wolf pack seemed determined to stop her. She had packed only what she truly needed. 3 dresses, her healer tools, a small journal, and the worn leather bag she had carried when she first arrived. She expected guards at the gate. She expected questions from the council. She did not expect Ronan sitting beside her suitcase like a very large, very judgmental guard dog. Clara crossed her arms. You know, most people say goodbye before refusing to let someone leave. Ronan blinked slowly. He looked completely certain that his position was reasonable. You are arguing with a wolf, Everett said from behind her. Clara turned and found the Alpha King standing beneath the stone archway. No crown, no formal armor, just a dark coat and the same controlled expression he wore during council meetings. Somehow, that made the moment more difficult. Your wolf has a habit of making decisions without asking permission, Clara said. Everett glanced at Ronan. I have noticed. And you are not going to stop him? There was a pause. A real one. Everett looked at the suitcase, then at Clara. Would you believe me if I said I tried? Clara almost smiled. Almost. That was the problem with Everett Callahan. He was supposed to be impossible to understand. The Alpha King who never hesitated. The leader who could silence an entire room with a single look. But around her, small cracks appeared. A delayed answer. A softened voice. A moment where he looked less like a king and more like a man who did not know what to do with losing something important. Why does he care so much? Clara asked quietly. Everett looked away. Ronan has always been difficult. That is not an answer. The Alpha King said nothing, and that silence told her more than words could. Clara had spent her life understanding animals because they rarely lied. Wolves did not pretend to trust someone. They did not offer loyalty because of status or titles. They chose. That was what bothered her most about Ronan. The wolf had chosen her before she ever understood why. Later that afternoon, Clara returned to the Royal Animal Wing to finish her final duties. She expected the usual quiet halls and empty treatment rooms. Instead, she found a small crowd gathered outside. Several young wolves from the royal pack were sitting near her clinic door, waiting. The guards looked confused. The beta looked exhausted. "They have been here for 20 minutes, he said. Clara looked at him. "Why?" He gave her a tired smile. "Apparently, they do not want their healer leaving either." Clara knelt beside the wolves and felt the familiar warmth of their trust. This was why she became a healer. Not for titles, not for royal approval, for moments like this. But when she stood again, she noticed Everett watching from across the hall. He was not watching like a king protecting an asset. He was watching like someone realizing that a place had become empty before she had even left. "Clara," he said softly, "the council will meet tomorrow." Her expression changed. "About what?" Everett hesitated. "About you." The words settled heavily between them. Clara understood immediately. This was never only about a suitcase. It was about the space she occupied in his world. The pack had noticed. The wolf had noticed. Everyone except the Alpha King had been trying to ignore the truth. And tomorrow, the entire kingdom would have something to say about the Omega who made the Alpha King's wolf choose a side. The council chamber of Silverpine Palace had always felt cold to Clara Whitmore. Not because of the stone walls or the winter air outside, but because every person inside seemed to measure her before they ever spoke to her. The next morning, she stood beneath the tall glass windows with her hands folded calmly, while the leaders of the northern packs watched her like she was a question they needed to solve. At the center of the room sat Alpha King Everett Callahan. His expression was controlled, unreadable. But Clara had learned something about him. The quieter he became, the more he was fighting to say something. "The issue is not whether Clara Whitmore is skilled as a healer," Lord Adrian Voss, one of the senior council members, said. "No one denies that she has helped the royal animals." He paused and looked toward Ronan, who was resting beside Everett's throne. "The concern is why the Alpha King's wolf has become so attached to her." Clara felt the room shift. There it was. The question everyone had been avoiding. Not whether she was capable, not whether she belonged, but whether she belonged too much. "Ronan trusts her," Everett said. His voice was calm. "That is all." Clara looked at him. That answer should have comforted her. Instead, it created a small ache in her chest. Because she knew it was not the whole truth. Ronan trusted many people, but Ronan chose her. There was a difference. "With respect, Your Majesty," another council member said, "a wolf's instincts are powerful. Especially an alpha wolf's instincts. If his bond with her affects your judgment, then the pack has a right to know." Clara noticed Everett's hand tighten slightly against the armrest. A tiny movement. Most people would have missed it. She did not. She spent years watching animals hide discomfort behind stillness. "You are suggesting I cannot separate duty from emotion?" Everett asked. The room became silent. The question carried more weight than anger ever could. The council member lowered his gaze. "We are suggesting that a king must protect the pack before himself." Clara understood then. This was not only about her. It was about Everett's greatest fear. He had spent his entire life proving that he was more than instinct, more than the wolf inside him, more than the expectations placed on every alpha who wore a crown. And now everyone feared the one thing he could not control, his heart. After the meeting ended, Clara found Everett alone in the royal gardens. Ronan was lying nearby, watching them both with the patience of someone who already understood the conversation. "You should have told them," Clara said. Everett looked at her. "Told them what?" "That your wolf did not choose me because I am useful." A silence followed. "You think that is what I believe?" Everett asked. Clara looked down at the frost-covered flowers. "I think you are afraid of what it means." For once, Everett did not deny it. An Alpha King cannot make decisions based only on a bond. "No," Clara said softly. "But an Alpha King who ignores a bond may end up making decisions based on fear." The words stayed between them. Everett looked toward Ronan, then back at her. "You make things difficult." Clara gave a small smile. "I have been told that before." A quiet sound came from Ronan. Almost a laugh. Everett actually looked surprised. It was the first time Clara had seen the king and wolf completely agree. But the moment did not last. A messenger arrived carrying a sealed report from the Eastern Pax. A rumor had spread beyond the palace. The Omega healer had influenced the Alpha King. Some believed she was dangerous. Some believed she was trying to claim power. Clara read the message once and knew exactly what would happen next. She had spent her life healing creatures that others feared. Now the entire pack was beginning to fear her. And for the first time, Ronan did not bring her suitcase back because he knew she was thinking about leaving again. The message from the Eastern Pax changed everything inside Silverpine Palace. Not because the accusation was new. Clara Whitmore had expected whispers. She had expected doubt. What she did not expect was how quickly people could turn a simple act of kindness into a political threat. By sunset, the halls were filled with rumors. The Omega healer had changed the Alpha King. The Alpha King's wolf no longer listened to anyone else. The bond between them was becoming a weakness. Clara heard every word. She always did. Healers learned to notice small things. A nervous hand. A lowered voice. A person who smiled while preparing to leave. That night, she packed her suitcase again. This time, she did not tell anyone. She did not want Ronan carrying it back. She did not want Everett standing in another doorway, looking like he wanted to stop her but could not find the words. She simply wanted to leave before she became the reason Silverpine Pack divided itself. "You are leaving." Everett's voice came from behind her. Clara froze. She turned slowly and found him standing near the open doorway. No guards. No council members. Just Everett. "You already know why," she said. He stepped inside. "I know what people are saying." "And?" Clara asked. "And I know they are wrong." The answer surprised her. She expected another careful royal response. Another explanation about duty and responsibility. Instead, Everett looked tired. Not like a king. Like a man who had spent too long carrying everything alone. "Then why did you not say that in the council chamber?" Clara asked. Everett looked down for a moment. "Because if I defend you too strongly, they will believe the rumors." "What rumors?" Her voice softened, but the hurt remained. "That I cannot think clearly around you." Everett was quiet. Clara looked at the suitcase beside her. "Maybe they are right about one thing." His eyes lifted. "What?" "You do not think clearly around me." The words landed harder than she intended. "You think protecting me means keeping me hidden. You think deciding my future for me is the same as caring about me." Everett did not answer immediately, and that silence told her she was right. Ronan appeared at the doorway. The wolf looked between them, then walked directly to the suitcase. Clara sighed. "No, Ronan." The wolf ignored her. He gently picked up the handle and carried it back into the room. For the first time, Clara laughed. A small, surprised laugh. Even Everett looked almost amused. "Your wolf has terrible timing," she said. Everett watched Ronan settle beside the suitcase. "He has always been more honest than I am." The sentence changed something. Clara looked at him carefully. Everett rarely admitted weakness. Not in front of the council. Not in front of the pack. Not even to himself. "What are you afraid will happen?" she asked. The Alpha King looked toward the palace windows, where the lights of Silverpine stretched across the valley. "That I will choose you over my people." Clara frowned. "That is not what a bond means." Everett looked back at her. "You are sure?" She stepped closer, but kept her voice calm. "A true bond does not make a leader weaker. It shows him what he is fighting to protect." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ronan rested his head beside Clara's suitcase like he had officially ended the argument. But before the moment could become something warmer, a royal attendant arrived with urgent news. The council had called an emergency gathering. Someone had discovered an old record connected to Clara's past. A record that could change everything. Clara felt the room grow colder. Everett noticed immediately. "What is it?" he asked. She looked at the sealed document in the attendant's hands. "I do not know." Ronan stood. This time, he was not playful. He was alert. Because whatever secret was hidden inside that record was not just about Clara leaving. It was about why the pack had never known who she truly was. The sealed record sat on the table between Clara Whitmore and the Alpha King like a question neither of them wanted to answer. The royal attendant had delivered it without explanation, only saying that the council requested everyone involved to review the document before the emergency gathering the following morning. Clara stared at the old silver seal pressed into the envelope. She recognized the symbol immediately, not because she had seen it recently, but because she had spent years trying to forget it. Everett noticed the change in her expression. Clara. She looked away. I did not know this still existed. Ronan moved closer. The wolf who usually treated every problem like a personal challenge suddenly became quiet. He knew. Animals always knew when people were carrying memories they did not want to open. Everett carefully broke the seal. Inside was a collection of old records from the Northern Archives. Clara read the first page, and her hands became still. This is impossible. Everett looked at her. What is it? She took a breath. My family was connected to the first royal healers of Silverpine. The room went silent. Your family? Everett asked. Clara nodded slowly. Generations ago, they worked with the Alpha line to understand wolf bonds. But after a political dispute, their name disappeared from royal records. She looked down at the pages. I grew up believing it was because my ancestors failed. Everett continued reading. His expression changed. The records were not a story of failure. They described a rare ability passed through Clara's bloodline. The ability to understand the emotional connection between a shifter and their wolf. Not control. Not influence. Understanding. The council knew about this, Everett said quietly. Clara looked at him. What? He held the paper tighter. Someone removed these records from the official archives. The truth settled heavily. Someone had not only hidden Clara's past. Someone had hidden the reason she was connected to Ronan. So now they can say I planned this, Clara whispered. They can say I came here because I knew about the bond. Everett immediately shook his head. I do not believe that. She looked at him. But you understand why they will. He did. That was the hardest part. The pack would not only question Clara. They would question Everett's ability to lead. If the council could convince everyone that the Alpha King had been influenced by an Omega healer with a hidden history, they could challenge his authority without ever attacking his strength. Ronan suddenly stood and walked toward Everett. The wolf looked at him for several seconds. Then he turned and sat beside Clara instead. Everett almost smiled. He is making his opinion very clear. Clara looked at Ronan. Your wolf has never been subtle. Neither have you, Everett said. She looked back at him. For a moment, the distance between them felt smaller. I was going to leave because I thought staying would hurt your pack. Everett lowered his voice. And I was trying to push you away because I thought wanting you would hurt my pack. Clara heard the honesty in his words. Not a king speaking. A man finally admitting what he feared. Before she could answer, a bell rang through the palace. The emergency council gathering had begun. The entire Silverpine leadership was waiting. Clara picked up the record. She expected fear. She expected doubt. But something inside her had changed. She was no longer just the Omega healer who arrived at the palace with a small bag and no title. She was someone the pack had forgotten. Someone the records had erased. And tomorrow, in front of every leader in Silverpine, the truth would finally have a chance to return. The Silverpine Council chamber had never felt so crowded. Every seat was filled. Leaders from the northern packs stood along the walls. Royal advisors whispered among themselves. And the old families watched Clara Whitmore as if they were waiting for her to prove every rumor they had heard. Clara stood beside Everett Callahan, not behind him. She noticed that detail immediately. For the first time since arriving at the palace, the Alpha King had not placed her somewhere safe and invisible. He had placed her beside him. Lord Adrian Voss opened the meeting with a calm expression that did not hide his intentions. The records discovered last night raised serious questions. His eyes moved toward Clara. An Omega healer with a forgotten royal connection appears at Silverpine Palace, forms a rare bond with the Alpha King's wolf, and suddenly old records return. A quiet murmur moved through the chamber. Clara kept her face steady, but she felt every word. Everett stepped forward. Choose your next words carefully. The room became silent. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. I will not allow this council to accuse someone without evidence. Lord Voss remained calm. No accusation has been made, Your Majesty. We are asking for answers. Clara looked around the room. She understood politics. She understood fear. She understood why the pack was uncertain. But she also understood something else. They were not afraid of her power. They were afraid of losing control of a system they had trusted for generations. Then ask me directly, Clara said. Several council members looked surprised. Everett glanced at her, but he did not stop her. Ask what you want to know. Lord Voss studied her. Why did Ronan choose you? Clara looked toward the silver wolf resting near Everett's throne. Ronan lifted his head slightly, almost as if he expected her answer. Because I listened to him. A few people exchanged doubtful looks. Clara continued. Everyone saw a royal wolf. A symbol of strength. A weapon of the crown. I saw an animal that was hurting and trying to hide it. Everett's expression softened for a moment. He remembered. The first day she arrived. The fake injury. The way she saw through everything without fear. You believe you understand the bond between Alpha and Wolf better than generations of royal advisors? Another council member asked. Clara shook her head. No, I believe I understand that a bond cannot survive if one side is ignored. The room went quiet again. Everett looked at her, and for once, he did not look like a king searching for the correct answer. He looked like someone hearing the truth. Then the doors opened. A royal archivist entered carrying another collection of documents. Your Majesty, we found additional records hidden beneath the old healing archives. The council turned. The archivist placed the papers on the table. The original royal healers were not removed from history because they failed. They were removed because their methods challenged the council's authority. Shock moved through the chamber. Clara slowly understood. Her family had not disappeared because they were weak. They had disappeared because they taught something inconvenient. A true bond could not be controlled by rank. It had to be respected. Lord Voss looked unsettled for the first time. Everett picked up the documents and read them carefully. Then he turned toward the council. For years, Silverpine believed leadership meant control. His eyes moved across the room. Maybe leadership means knowing when to listen. Ronan stood and walked to Clara's side. The entire chamber watched as the Alpha King's wolf chose his place. Not behind the throne. Not beside the council. Beside her. And in that moment, everyone understood the truth they had tried to ignore. The bond was not making the Alpha King weaker. It was showing the pack what kind of leader he could become. The day after the council meeting, Silverpine Palace felt different. The halls were still made of white stone. The royal banners still hung above the entrances. The guards still stood at attention. But something had changed. People were no longer looking at Clara Whitmore like she was an outsider who had somehow wandered into the wrong place. They were watching her like they were trying to understand a truth they had ignored for too long. Clara noticed the difference immediately. She had spent enough time around animals to recognize the moment fear started becoming curiosity. It was the same with the royal wolves. First they kept their distance. Then they watched. Then, eventually, they came closer. You realize you have caused a very unusual situation, Everett said as they walked through the royal gardens. Clara glanced at him. I caused it. Everett looked toward Ronan, who was walking several steps ahead of them with the confidence of someone who believed the entire palace belonged to him. My wolf has never interrupted council meetings before. Clara smiled slightly. Your wolf has never met someone who tells him when he is pretending to be injured. For a moment, Everett almost laughed. Almost. Clara had learned that his smiles were rare. They appeared quickly, like sunlight through clouds, and disappeared before most people noticed. But she noticed. She always noticed. You are different here, she said. Everett looked at her. Different. Less like a king. He raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerous. It is a compliment. She looked toward the gardens. Everyone sees the crown first. They forget there is a person underneath it. Everett was quiet. That was the problem with Clara. She had a habit of saying things no one else dared to say. Not because she wanted to challenge him. Because she simply saw him clearly. Later that afternoon, Clara returned to the royal animal wing. After the council accepted the truth about her family records, she expected more questions. Instead, she found something unexpected. The younger wolves of Silverpine Pack were waiting outside her clinic again. This time, they were not waiting for treatment. They were waiting for her attention. One young wolf dropped a wooden toy near her feet. Clara picked it up. Is this your way of requesting a medical appointment? The wolf tilted its head. Ronan watched from across the courtyard, clearly approving. Everett arrived moments later and stopped when he saw the scene. I have negotiated peace between 3 packs, he said. I have handled political disputes that lasted for decades. Clara looked at him, and he nodded toward the wolves. I have never convinced them to share. Clara laughed softly. It was a simple moment. No counsel, no rumors, no pressure, just the kind of peace Everett rarely experienced. But peace never lasted long for an Alpha King. That evening, a new message arrived from the Southern Packs. Several leaders who had supported Everett now questioned the legitimacy of the bond between him and Clara. They did not challenge her because she was weak. They challenged her because she represented change. And change was something powerful people often feared. Everett read the message in silence. Clara watched his expression shift. "What did they say?" she asked. He hesitated. "They want proof." "Proof of what?" Everett looked at her. "That this bond is real. That it is not affecting my ability to lead." Clara understood. The pack did not only want a decision. They wanted a public answer. A true alpha did not hide behind advisors. A true alpha stood before his people. Ronan walked beside Everett and stopped between them. The wolf looked at his alpha, then at Clara, as if reminding him of something simple. A bond was not proven by words. It was proven by choice. Everett placed a hand against Ronan's fur and looked toward the palace lights. Tomorrow, the entire Silverpine pack would gather. And for the first time, Everett would have to choose between protecting the image of a perfect king and revealing the truth of the man behind the crown. The gathering of Silverpine pack began before sunrise. By the time the first rays of light reached the palace towers, hundreds of wolves, leaders, healers, and royal families had already filled the grand courtyard. This was not a celebration. It was a decision day. Every person standing there wanted the same answer. Could an alpha king truly lead when his heart had chosen someone unexpected? Clara Whitmore stood beside Everett Callahan beneath the royal banners. She could feel the eyes on her. Months ago, she would have lowered her gaze. She would have stepped back and allowed the powerful people around her to speak. But she was no longer the Omega healer who arrived at Silverpine with a small bag and no title. She had learned something from the wolves she cared for. Being quiet did not mean being weak. Everett looked toward the crowd. For a moment, he was the alpha king everyone knew. Calm, controlled, impossible to read. Then he reached for Clara's hand. It was a simple gesture, but the entire courtyard noticed. A wave of whispers moved through the pack. Lord Adrian Voss stepped forward. "Your Majesty, no one questions your strength. We question whether this bond has changed your priorities." Everett looked at him. "My priorities are the same." "Then prove it," Lord Voss said. "Show the pack that your judgment remains your own." Clara expected Everett to answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her. That surprised everyone, because a king was supposed to look toward his advisors, his council, his warriors, not toward one Omega healer standing beside him. "Clara," Everett said quietly, "what do you think?" The courtyard became silent. Clara understood what he was doing. He was not making the decision for her. He was finally trusting her enough to let her speak. She stepped forward. "The pack is afraid because they believe a bond takes something away from a leader." She looked around at the gathered wolves. But a true bond does not remove responsibility. It reminds us why responsibility matters. Some faces remained uncertain. Some softened. Clara continued. "I have spent my entire life healing animals because I learned something simple. You cannot force trust. You cannot demand loyalty. You have to earn it." Ronan walked forward then. The silver wolf moved slowly through the crowd, and every wolf nearby became quiet. He stopped beside Clara. Not in front of her. Not behind her. Beside her. Everett watched him carefully. Ronan had always been a reflection of what Everett tried to hide. His instincts. His emotions. His truth. "Ronan chose Clara before I understood why," Everett said. His voice carried across the courtyard. "For a long time, I believed that made me vulnerable." He paused. "I was wrong." The word surprised everyone, including Clara. A leader who fears every connection will eventually stand alone. A leader who understands what he protects will become stronger. The courtyard remained silent. Then something unexpected happened. One by one, the younger wolves lowered their heads toward Clara, not as a command, as a sign of acceptance. The gesture moved through the pack slowly. Not everyone agreed. Not everyone trusted immediately. But they listened. And that mattered. Later, when the crowd finally began to leave, Clara found Everett standing alone near the garden path. "You know," she said, "for someone who spent months avoiding difficult conversations, that was surprisingly brave." Everett looked at her. "I had a good teacher." Clara smiled. "Who?" He glanced toward Ronan, who was pretending not to listen. Apparently, a very stubborn wolf. For the first time, Clara saw Everett laugh without trying to hide it. But their peaceful moment ended when a messenger arrived with a final warning. The records had proven Clara's history. The pack had witnessed Everett's choice. Yet someone inside Silverpine still refused to accept the bond. Someone who had been waiting quietly for the perfect moment to reveal the last secret hidden in the royal archives. The secret hidden inside the royal archives was revealed 3 days after the gathering of Silverpine Pack. And this time, it was not an old record or a forgotten family name. It was a confession. The document belonged to a former council advisor who had served under Everett Callahan's father. It explained everything. Years ago, the council had hidden Clara Whitmore's family history because the old healers believed something the powerful leaders did not want to hear. A pack was not built on control. A kingdom was not held together by fear. And an alpha was never meant to stand above everyone else. An alpha was meant to stand with them. Clara read the final lines quietly. The strongest leader is not the one who commands every voice. It is the one who knows when to listen. She looked up at Everett. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They both understood what the words meant. The problem was never the bond. The problem was the fear surrounding it. Lord Adrian Voss had spent years believing that order could only exist through control. But now the truth was clear. The pack had not become weaker because Everett trusted someone. It had become stronger because he finally stopped carrying everything alone. When the council gathered one final time, Everett stood before them. The same throne, the same room, the same people who once questioned his judgment. But he was different. For a long time, I believed being an alpha meant never needing anyone, Everett said. I believed every emotion was a weakness and every connection was a risk. His eyes moved toward Clara. I was wrong. The room remained silent. A leader who refuses every bond may protect his pride, but he cannot truly understand his people. Clara felt the weight of that moment, not because Everett chose her, but because he finally chose honesty. The council accepted the evidence. The old accusations against Clara were dismissed. The rumors slowly faded. Not overnight. Not magically. Trust was not something that returned because a king gave an order. Trust had to be rebuilt, one choice at a time. Clara continued working as Silverpine's royal healer, but her role changed. She was no longer someone the palace tolerated. She became someone the pack respected. She trained young healers. She worked with the royal wolves. She reminded everyone that strength could be gentle. Months later, Clara stood near the palace gates with a familiar leather suitcase beside her. Everett saw it and immediately stopped walking. Clara. She looked at him and smiled. Relax. I am not leaving. Ronan appeared beside them and inspected the suitcase carefully anyway. Clara laughed. He still does not trust me. Everett looked at his wolf. I think he does not trust me. The silver wolf looked away with the exact expression of someone who knew he was right. Clara looked across the valley where Silverpine Pack lived beneath the mountains. She thought about the first day she arrived. She had been an Omega with no title, no power, and no reason to believe anyone important would notice her. But she had learned something. Worth was never given by a crown. It was never measured by status. And it was never decided by the people who refused to see your value. Sometimes, the person with the smallest voice could change the future of an entire kingdom. Everett stood beside her, not above her. Ronan rested nearby, finally peaceful. The Alpha King had learned that leadership was not about controlling every part of himself. It was about having the courage to be honest. And Clara had learned that leaving was easy when you believed you did not belong. Staying was different when you finally realized you had always been chosen. In Silverpine, the greatest bond was not the one written in ancient records or protected by royal tradition. It was the one built through trust, loyalty, and the simple choice to stand beside someone when the entire world was watching.